This is the Audi RS e-tron GT. It's a high-performance electric sedan that will go from 0 to 60 in just 3.1 seconds. It's the car that Tony Stark uses to flex on Captain America when pulling up to the Avengers campus. But you know what I really want to know? How often do people that own insanely fast electric cars do this? Left foot on the brake, accelerator all the way down, and let's go. Oh, my stuff is flying around and that hurt. My name is Omar and this is the Audi RS e-tron GT. And the camera moved. You know, when I hear about insanely quick 0 to 60 times become an argument for how good an electric car is, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of get confused. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love performance and quick acceleration is pretty important. But I highly doubt that people that spend well over $100,000 on a Tesla Model S Plaid, a Porsche Taycan Turbo, or even this Audi RS e-tron GT are hard launching their cars every single day. I'm sure a majority of the time they're looking to conserve battery and get the most range possible. But yeah, the Porsche Taycan and the Audi e-tron GT are basically siblings. They share the platform, they share batteries, they share motors. The RS e-tron GT that I'm driving here is basically a Taycan Turbo, and the non-RS e-tron GT is basically a Taycan 4S. And since the e-tron GT isn't a Porsche, it's more affordable. That said, should you save yourself some money and go for the e-tron over the Taycan? Also, should you go for the regular e-tron GT or the high-performance RS one? Let's find out. Let me give you a quick tour of the RS e-tron GT. We'll talk about the electric side of things, we'll take a look around inside, and talk about the exterior. And then I'll give you my opinion on how this thing drives and whether or not if you should spend your hard-earned money on one. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. All right, let's go. Let's do that in a calmer way. Let's put it in comfort mode. Efficiency mode. Let's put it in efficiency mode. Let's go. Let's do this. So unlike the Porsche Taycan, which comes in many different trims and which this shares a lot of things with, the e-tron GT only comes in 2 flavors. Both of them have a dual motor setup, so they are all-wheel drive as standard. The e-tron GT is less powerful, making 469 horsepower in regular form or 522 horsepower in boost mode. The RS e-tron GT is the high-performance version, making 590 horsepower in regular form or 637 horsepower in boost mode, which is absolutely insane. Keep in mind though, you get the boost power for about 2.5 seconds during your initial launch control. So again, while the e-tron GT is more like the Taycan 4S, the RS e-tron GT is similar to the Taycan Turbo. Of course, that means it's super quick. The RS e-tron GT will hit 60 in 3.1 seconds, which is crazy fast. But the regular e-tron GT isn't slow either. That will hit 60 in just 3.9 seconds. That said, the Taycan Turbo will do 60 in 3 seconds flat. And of course, we have to mention the Tesla Model S because what's an EV review without mentioning Tesla? The base Model S will do 60 in 3.1 seconds, while the Model S Plaid will do it in like 1.9999 seconds. Alright, let's talk range really quick. Now the EPA says that the regular e-tron GT gets a total of 238 miles on a full charge, while the RS e-tron GT will do 232 miles. So not a big difference between both. However, just like on the Taycan, the EPA is pretty conservative with the range figures on the e-tron GT. I charged this thing to 100% and it was reading out a range of 273 miles. And even after I started driving around for a bit, it hung on to the range pretty well. In my experience, I think the RS e-tron GT is capable of doing somewhere north of 255 miles to 260 miles. That said, let's talk about how long it takes to charge. Like its Taycan sibling, the e-tron GTs are capable of charging at a maximum charging speed of 270 kilowatts, making them some of the fastest charging EVs on the road today. If you use a 50 kilowatt DC fast charger, you can go from 5 to 80% in around an hour and a half. And if all is perfect in the world and you hit the maximum charging power, you can go from 5 to 80% in just 22 minutes, which Audi says should add on an extra 180 miles of range. Also, just like the Taycan, the e-tron GTs get charging ports on both sides. You have AC charging on both sides of the vehicle. However, DC fast charging is only available on the passenger side port. All right, so now that we've got the EV specs out of the way, let's talk about how much the e-tron GT costs. It isn't cheap by any means, but it is cheaper than the Porsche Taycan, which is a little bit of a plus. The base e-tron GT starts at $104,900, while the performance RS e-tron GT starts right under $144,000. Now, for comparison purposes, the Porsche Taycan Turbo is about $10,000 more than the RS e-tron GT, but as tested here, you're looking at a total of $161,890. And don't worry, as we go along, I'll point out what packages and options add on to the price of my test model here. All right, let's check out the interior of the Audi RS e-tron GT. And once you get in here, you'll see that this is a very nice place to be. It's everything that you would expect from Audi. It's really well put together, very high quality, and really well designed. And there's a reason I like this interior more than other Audi models, and that's because you don't have a dual screen setup. You have a 10.1-inch display for the infotainment, but when it comes to the climate control settings, those are actually physical buttons. Thank God. So let's talk about the infotainment really quick. If you're familiar with Audi's MMI infotainment system, this is pretty straightforward. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, so you're good there. You also have navigation, and then you also have a screen where you can get some information on the EV side of things. Now, when it comes to driver assist tech, everything is essentially standard since the e-tron GT is already so expensive. Camera game-wise, you obviously have a rear view camera, you also have a 360-degree view camera, and you also have Audi's famous 3D camera view, which will let you sit there and circle around your e-tron GT. Let me know if you ever use this camera to park or see how you parked. Other than that, you have adaptive cruise control, you have lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, and all the cross-traffic alert assist systems that you'll ever need. Not to mention, if you suck at parallel parking or perpendicular parking, you also have park assist, which will let this automatically park itself, and you also have a heads-up display. The other screen you have in here is the Audi Virtual Cockpit display, and it's pretty straightforward and similar to the ones you see on other Audi models, but there has been some redesigning done here to, show the electric side of things. But of course, you still have the beautiful full-screen map view, which looks really, really nice, and then you have a few other viewing modes as well. But yeah, if the Porsche Taycan's dual touchscreen displays were too much for you, the e-tron GT is probably something that you'll appreciate a little bit more. Oh, and for everyone out there that isn't feeling this new volume dial on newer Audi models, stop complaining about not having an actual knob and all that. This touch-sensitive dial actually works really, really well. That said, in terms of comfort, this interior is a really nice place to be. The seats on my test model are covered in fine Nappa leather, and they are heated as standard, so that's pretty nice. However, if you fancy yourself some ventilated seats, that will be part of a full leather interior package for around $5,300. Of course, for that price tag, you'll get much more, including massaging front seats. That package also gives you a bunch of leather everywhere, like here up on the dash, and then you have a bunch of carbon fiber trim all over this interior. Also, unlike the Porsche Taycan, the Audi RS e-tron GT gets a bunch of things as standard, including an awesome Bang & Olufsen sound system that sounds really, really nice. You also get ambient lighting in here, which looks really nice at nighttime, and you get a wireless charger at no extra cost. Hop in the second row of the e-tron GT and you're working with 32.2 inches of legroom. I'm about 6 foot tall, that's my seating position. As you can see, the legroom is okay, not that great, but it's all right. And you can also get heated seats in the second row. Also, unlike the Porsche Taycan, you can actually fit 3 people in the back. It's gonna be a tight squeeze, but they do have a belt latch for the person sitting in the middle. Might be tight, but hey, there is a seat at least. As far as trunk space goes, the e-tron GT gets a total of 9.2 cubic feet. Sorry for the mess back here. It's all right. It's not that terrible, but it's not that big either. Now, you do have a frunk, but I had some difficulty finding the button for it. There's no button on the keys, that's just for your trunk. There is a trunk release button right here, and there's no latch here to pop open the hood. So where's the button for the frunk? The only way to pop open the frunk on the e-tron GT is to use this button located here on the driver's side door. Just push it, and it's now open. So let's check out how much space you're working with. You got a total of 1.8 cubic feet. So yeah, it's not that big. I mean, you could fit some stuff here, but not that much. Now, let's talk about the exterior design really quick, because this is one area where I think the e-tron GT really outshines the Porsche Taycan. I mean, just look at it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's very rare when a concept version of a car looks exactly like the production version, but that's what you have here. Really, nothing has changed from the concept to the production model, and when I first saw Tony Stark driving this in Avengers Endgame, I was totally hooked. Of course, the Taycan doesn't look bad at all, but there's just something about the e-tron GT that attracts me a little bit more to it. And of course, since this is an Audi, the lighting game is pretty crazy. If you add on the carbon performance package, you'll get some pretty cool headlight and taillight animations. I took a shot of the headlights and the taillights doing their thing around sunset so you can see it better, but the light animation game here is definitely better than what the Taycan has. Now, that carbon performance package adds on an extra $6,450 to the price, but it will also give you HD matrix headlamps with Audi laser lights. It blacks out all of the Audi logos and all of the badges so it looks a little bit more stealth. It gives you carbon fiber sills. And this package also adds on the Power Steering Plus and Rear Wheel Steering. Rear Wheel Steering. Try saying that 3 times. As for the wheel game, all e-tron GTs come standard with 20-inch wheels, but my test model here has the carbon brakes package for $7,100, which is pretty expensive, but that upgrades the wheel size to 21-inch wheels, and it also gives you ceramic brakes, which is why it's so expensive. Oh, and by the way, you can also put up the rear spoiler if you want to look cool driving around in your e-tron GT. You just hit this button right here in the infotainment system, and it will go up. Not sure what this does for aerodynamics though. Alright, so before I give you my final thoughts on how it is to drive the Audi e-tron GT, or in this case the RS e-tron GT, let me point out a few important daily ownership highlights that I'd love to show all of you. You have 4 cup holders, 2 in the front right there, and then you have 2 in the back in the center armrest right there. Here are the keys, pretty simple Audi key. You have an RS logo on the back, nice. Door open and close sound from the outside and from the inside. Solid. Charging game wise, in the front you're working with a wireless charger, which is standard again, and you have 2 USB-C ports right here. Rear passengers have 2 USB-C ports located right here under the middle seat. And let's do an indicator and horn sound test. Indicator first. Same old Audi indicator. Now for the horn sound. That's solid. I like it. All right, let's start off in comfort mode and talk about how this drives. If you drive this like a normal human being and obey your local traffic laws, you'll really enjoy the way this moves. It's actually really comfortable. Audi did a great job of calibrating this to drive like a regular car. And what I mean by that is that the acceleration, the brakes, the suspension, it actually feels like you're driving a gasoline-powered car. Not to mention, this interior doesn't have any of the electric car gimmicks. Like I mentioned earlier when I was giving you a tour of the inside, everything feels like a normal Audi. It isn't crazy futuristic and all that stuff. Not to mention the sound that this thing makes when you're accelerating and braking. I don't know if you can hear it, but this is probably the best fake noise I've ever heard from an EV. It has this bass rumble to it. It does sound like a spaceship, but it isn't annoying like some other fake sounds out there. Honestly, I like this more than BMW's iconic sounds that they made with Hans Zimmer. Wait, you might hear it better if I accelerate a little hard. Jesus, even going 50 and just stepping on it, this thing just takes off. I'm already at 90. No one man should have all that power. In quotes, Kanye West. Copyright Kanye West. But yeah, too much power for one man. 102, I just hit 102. Jeez, this thing is insanely quick. So do I recommend this over the Porsche Taycan Turbo? I do, and it's not because this costs 10 grand less. Well, maybe a little, but there are other reasons. Again, this interior is so simple and normal. If you don't like what Porsche has done with the Taycan with the multiple screen and touchscreen layout, you'll definitely like this much better. You see, going electric already has a learning curve along with it, but when automakers throw in a bunch of other modern tech like a ton of touchscreen displays, that just makes it more difficult to take the step to switch over from an ICE vehicle. Now, don't get me wrong, there is no doubt that the Taycan drives a little bit better, but I don't think the average consumer will notice a difference. The reason people buy a Taycan is because it's a Porsche first. They want the prestige and the feeling that comes along with it. All right, so do I recommend this over the regular e-tron GT? No, I don't. Why? Well, let me ask you this. Do you like money? Do you like having money? Because there is a $40,000 jump between this and the base e-tron GT. The only difference between the base e-tron GT and the RS e-tron GT is essentially the crazy acceleration, and most of that acceleration is in boost mode that lasts like 2.5 seconds. And even then, it's not that much of a difference. The RS e-tron GT is just 0.8 seconds quicker. Other than that, the two drive very similar. And if you're like, yeah, Omar, I can drop 40K to go 0.8 seconds faster, let's meet up because I want to know what you do for a living like Daniel Mack. That said, even the base e-tron GT is pretty expensive. That starts at $104,900, so yeah, both of these aren't cheap EVs. And let's address the biggest issue, the range. At that price tag, the range just isn't enough. This is a great car. It's a great electric car. It's just at that price tag, I expect a range of over 300 miles, which yeah, that makes a case for the Model S or the Model S Plaid. Of course, this drives much better than the Model S, but I really think that the price tag hurts it. This is one of the first EVs to come out of the big three German luxury brands, and the first batch, as we know, is always pretty expensive. Things are starting to get better with the introduction of more affordable luxury EVs like the BMW i4 and the BMW iX. And Audi is working on a smaller e-tron sedan, which would be more attainable, and I hope it will have more range. I can't stress how much I really enjoyed driving this around. It was definitely refreshing driving an EV that I didn't have to take a class to learn to live with. But if I'm being honest, at this price segment, this price tag, the Audi RS7 is a bit more appealing to me. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @omardrives. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace. Oh, Jesus. Imagine doing that every day, especially when you have passengers. They will absolutely hate you. Your friends will no longer be your friends, and your family just might disown you as a family member. But hey, I gotta say, it's a lot of fun. I'm already at 105. I was at 60, and that little run, I'm at 105.